Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture at Pat. So we got another week, another episode of Yellowjackets to talk about. If you guys have seen my previous videos, you know this is going to be spoiler filled. We are going to be talking about episode 3 called Digestif. So just again, this is going to have spoilers in it. If you haven't seen the episode, make sure you watch that before you come back and watch this video. Otherwise, if you don't care about spoilers, then feel free to continue watching. And if you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my videos. I'm doing these videos every single week for each episode. I also have cast interviews. I recently put up one with Nia Sundeo, who plays Akila in the show. So I will put that at the end of this video, as well as I'll put it in the description, the comments down below. So make sure to check that out. And I got a couple more coming for you in the next week or so. So you don't want to miss that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about episode 3. So the episode opens up exactly with the aftermath of what happened in episode 2, where we had Jackie's feast. We see the remains of what's left of Jackie's body, and then we quickly cut to a memory of Coach, where he's with his boyfriend, they start making out, and then it flashes back to our Yellowjackets in the 90s. So Nat's just sitting outside the cabin. She looks really shook up. Obviously, most people would be. And then Ty comes out of the cabin, sees Jackie, or at least what's left of her, and starts freaking out because she thinks that something else, like an animal, possibly got to her. And that's when Van goes over to her and is explaining that they are the ones that ate Jackie, and Ty is just, she's freaking out. And I didn't even think of this initially last episode, at the end of the episode 2, that Ty was in her dream state, so she didn't even know what was going on. And so she's kind of coming to that realization here. And then Van's explaining this all to her and saying that we ate her, and you ate her face. And Ty goes over, she throws up and screams, and that's the opening of the episode. So what a way to kick off episode 3. After the opening, we're in the cabin when Mari mentions that no one wants breakfast, and everyone kind of gives her a look. It's like, yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy after you just ate someone the night before. Nat mentions that they should probably end up moving Jackie's body, but Travis says they can't bury her now just because the ground's too hard. So Nat says that she'll take the body to where the plane is and talks to Shauna, asks her if that's okay, and Shauna just kind of nonchalantly says, whatever you think. And then you hear Coach, and he says, well, at least, if she's there, it'll look like that she died with everyone else. In the present day, we see Nat. She's walking by one of the buildings in this little camp where she sees Lottie having a session with a couple of the people there. She kind of sneaks around and starts walking around exploring the area when she runs into the girl that she ended up stabbing the other day. The girl asks what she's looking for, and Nat looks at a building that has a set of antlers on it and asks what's that for, and the girl mentions that that's Charlotte's headquarters. The girl ends up chopping off a chicken's head, and Nat kind of comes up closer to her and tells her that you should never swing an axe that close to your hand because you could hurt herself before she ends up walking away. So I love the back and forth between these two characters in the first couple episodes. We then see the aftermath of the accident from the previous episode with Ty and Simone. So they're in the hospital, and Ty, she's looking at the nurse. You see Sammy's there. Sammy says, is mommy going to die? And then you see Simone, and Simone says, is this what you wanted, or something along those lines? And then you realize that she was dreaming. She wakes up, and then when she comes to, you actually realize that Ty has drew that symbol on Simone's hand. From there, we see Misty is getting ready to go meet up with Elijah Wood's character. She's walking towards a ship, and there's a great song playing there, by the way. The whole soundtrack is amazing, but love the song choice here. She's walking towards the ship, starts talking to his character, and we find out that his character's name, and he just says that he's been really wanting to meet her just because of her ability to analyze evidence and things like that, so he admires her. Misty quickly lets him know, though, that this is her case and her witness, so she's going to be the one that's asking all the questions when Walter tells her, well, hey, by the way, our guy is actually here. And she turns quickly and realizes that it's Randy is the witness, and so she goes to hide in the boat. We then go to Shauna and Jeff, who are in this restaurant where they're having a conversation, and Jeff just mentions a comment about strawberry lube, and you see the waitress, the poor waitress that was starting to come over. She hears the comment and quickly just turns around and walks the other way. I swear to God, Jeff has some of the funniest one-liners in his show, and this is no different. So Jeff is sitting there as they're having this conversation, and he's kind of reflecting on their past, and to him, he thinks that Shauna looks at him and thinks that he's no fun in the bedroom, and so that it was his fault for why this happened, but Shauna explains that it wasn't his fault, it was her. She liked the way that she felt where she didn't know what was going to happen, and so that kind of leads to Jeff thinking that he needs to be a little bit more spontaneous. So as they're leaving, they get in their van, they're driving off, and Jeff decides he wants to be a little spontaneous here, so he tells them that he's going to take her to some place. I forget the name of the place where they're going to, but just listing off all these things. Have you ever done this, this, and that? And as they're driving, he's not really paying attention, of course, and he almost ends up running someone over. So they get out of the van to go check to make sure that this guy's okay. Well, as some of you guys have seen from the previous promos, this is where the scene where someone has both of them at gunpoint. So this guy pulls out a gun, basically trying to jack their car. Shauna isn't having any of that. She ends up pushing the guy onto the hood of the car and ends up grabbing the gun. Meanwhile, Jeff goes over and is like, no, what are you doing? Stops her from shooting the guy, so the guy ends up taking off with the van, and Jeff just kind of freaks out, like, what do you think you are, Rambo or something? Shauna tries to play it off, saying that there was shoes in there, one of Callie's toys, and just a couple other things, but you can just, the look in Jeff's face, you can tell that he's not buying that, and he's like, okay, what is wrong with you? From there, we go back to Lottie and Nat, who takes her to see this beehive that they have. Lottie's explaining how in the winter they huddle around the queen to keep her warm, and when a new queen hatches, she stings all the unborn queens to death, and Nat says, I can see why you like them. Now, is this referring to Lottie being the Antler Queen, I assume? There's a lot of different things in this episode that kind of hint at that. I know a lot of people have kind of been thinking that she is the Antler Queen. So that reference just earlier in the episode where we saw the antlers on one of the buildings there. Another reference possibly to that. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Lottie is the Antler Queen? From there, we see a quick flashback of going back to the 90s where Nat is gathering all of Jackie's remains. She's getting ready to leave, and she turns down Lottie's protection and also Travis's offer to come with her. Meanwhile, Lottie tells Shauna that this is what Jackie would have wanted for her and the baby to be able to help out. And she starts talking to Shauna and says that we should really do something to start preparing for the baby, for him to arrive. And you can see, I mean, that it caught my attention, but it catches Shauna attention, and she kind of just looks at Lottie and says, him? And then Lottie just kind of brushes it off real quick and switches the topic. And then you have the rest of the girls in the cabin. They end up, they hear, a little bit of this conversation, and so they ask, are we having a baby shower? So back in the present day, we have the interrogation scene where Walter's getting ready to interrogate Randy, and oh my God, guys, this scene had me cracking up. I was laughing so hard. So Misty is feeding Walter these questions, asking about what happened to Nat when Randy makes a comment about, oh, she was probably doing drugs or something that night. And you can tell that pisses off Misty. So she starts whisper yelling into the microphone or whatever for Walter to hear. And just the way that she's like yelling but whispering, I don't know, something about that. I was laughing so hard. Christina Ricci absolutely killed it in this episode. I loved her performance. Misty tells Walter to hit him, but so he goes out back to talk to her real quick. And when he comes back out, though, he goes up to Randy and just slaps him a couple times. And the look and the reaction on Randy's face was priceless. This, like I said, I love this scene. I thought it was hilarious. We then go back to the 90s where Akilah gets to have a nice little moment where they're working on something for Shauna's baby, where Akilah mentions that her older sister had a kid and she really misses him and just, would do anything to get back and see him. So just those little moments I really appreciate in the show, just getting to know a little bit more about some of these characters that we didn't get to necessarily see quite as much of in the first season. So that was a scene that I really appreciated here. So the girls are all working in the cabin, working on getting gifts ready and stuff for Shauna's baby shower, when Mari mentions something, or she asks the group if anyone else hears dripping, and no one else seems to notice it. But meanwhile, you have Misty and Crystal. They're bonding with each other, and you quickly realize that Crystal is, we kind of knew that a little bit already, but you realize that Crystal is just as fucking weird as Misty is. Crystal tells Misty that this wasn't the first time that she ate someone, and when she said that, I was watching the episode just like, what? I wasn't sure where this conversation was going, and then she mentions that when she was in the womb, she absorbed her identical twin, and you can tell that Misty is just fascinated by this. She asks her if she felt guilty, about doing that. Crystal mentions that she channels her when performing, and Misty says that she's fascinated by people becoming someone else. So I just really thought this whole conversation between these two characters was interesting. I don't know, a little bit of foreshadowing there, just maybe where the girls, when they first land, from the plane crash initially, and how, they become someone else as the show goes on. I don't know if maybe I might be reaching there, but that's kind of what my first thoughts were from that conversation. But I thought it was just interesting overall. And then Crystal says that she has an idea of what Misty can give Shauna for a gift. It's then at this point that poor Coach, he walks into the room and he sees Jen sitting there, and you can hear his stomach growl a little bit, and she just looks at him and goes, "Are you hungry?" And when he looks back at her, she gets down on all fours, starts crawling towards him with foam coming out of her mouth, and says, "I still am," and kind of growls at him a little bit. You realize he's just having a hallucination, and then snaps back to reality, and she just kind of looks at him like, "What's your problem?" And so as that's happening, we have another little memory of the Coach and his boyfriend. They're having a conversation in the house where the boyfriend, he wants him to move in with him, but the Coach mentions that the girls might be going to nationals, and so he wants to see that through. Now, his boyfriend makes a comment saying that he thought that all the girls were little monsters, and I thought that was just another little interesting comment there in a conversation, foreshadowing to the future where some of the girls, or all the girls, kind of turn into monsters in their own ways in order to survive out in the woods. So I just thought that was interesting, and then he tells Coach that he should probably leave because he wants to go with the girls instead of moving in with him. In the 90s timeline, we see Nat. She finally arrives to the plane. She gets inside with Jackie's remains, kind of sits down, is just having speaking out loud about her thoughts, about Jackie, and tells her that she thinks that Jackie's actually lucky because shit's going to get a lot worse out here. Again, just some more foreshadowing, I think, for what the rest of we're going to get in season 2. So a lot of interesting comments, foreshadowing, I think, in this specific episode. So little things that I picked up on. I want to hear what your guys' kind of thoughts are on these as well. But she just apologized. Well, first she says, she thanks her, but she apologized to her as well and says, "Rest in peace." And then all of a sudden, here's a noise outside, and you see there's this big white moose. And so Nat tries to get her gun, shoots at it, and then the thing starts charging at her when she's trying to reload. She finally gets, the bullet's ready to go, and then the moose is gone. So now my question is for you guys, do you think the moose was actually there? I know when it was showing her looking out, I believe you could see like the plane shaking, but that could be all in Nat's mind. So I'm curious if you guys think if that moose was actually real or if that was just a vision or hallucination that Nat was having. We then go back to the Walter interrogation scene in the present timeline, and Randy is just freaking out because Walter now has this tool that he's threatening Randy with because Misty is barking orders at him. And again, just this whole sequence, I was dying from every time that we saw these characters on the screen. Finally, they get Randy to remember or mention that he saw a group of people waiting, kind of hanging out around the motel. They were all wearing purple, and he was getting pissed at them because they were drinking I think it was the Fanta or the orange soda or something, that they were drinking all that. So he remembers being annoyed at them. And obviously that was Lottie's group. We then go back to the 90s timeline where we see Crystal and Misty. They're having a conversation about acting under the blankets. They have like a little fort going on there, which I appreciated just because I did that a lot when I was a kid. So I thought that was cool. But then Van is watching Ty sleep. We can kind of tell that a little bit of time passes, and then Ty wakes up, and Van goes, "If I let you go, will you let me follow me?" And she says yes, and so they go outside into the woods. So Van asks Ty, "How do you know where you're going?" And Ty mentions, "He shows me." So Van follows up asking, "Who?" And then Ty says, "The man with no eyes." "Is that who you always follow?" "Only when she lets me." Van says, "Who's she?" And then Ty says, "Ty." So Van kind of looks at her and goes, then who are you? So that whole interaction was creepy as fuck. So obviously Ty is fucking possessed by the devil. Who fucking knows what's going on with her? There's definitely some weird shit with the man with no eyes. You know, what's going on there? I'm really curious to see how this whole thing plays out, but it is getting really, really creepy. And then Ty ends up going over to the tree that has the symbol carved into it, and Van gets her to finally wake up, and Ty, you know, of course, doesn't realize anything what's going on. Van asks her, how did you know this was here? You went right to it. And, you know, she doesn't remember anything. In the present day, we have Jeff. He's at the gym, and he ends up seeing Kevin coming in. So he goes over there, confronts him about the whole situation with his wife and Adam, trying to throw Kevin off her trail. But he doesn't do a very good job at all. Kevin ends up bringing up to Jeff that he has gotten intel that him and his wife was having an affair with this Adam guy. And obviously, Jeff says, I don't know who you got your intel from, but it sucks. Little does Jeff know that the intel came from his daughter. So curious to see how that's going to play out at some point in this season, I'm sure. So then we see Shauna. She gets dropped off at the place that we find out that she actually had a tracker on her car. So she finds the place where her van was brought to. She pulls out the gun that she had from the guy, goes inside, ends up going to one of the rooms where one of the workers, I don't know if it was like the owner of this place or whatever, but confronts the guy and demands to get her van back. She has the gun pointed at the guy. Now, the guy doesn't think that she's going to do it because he can see that her hand is shaking initially. But then Shauna goes full on crazy with this guy and asks if he's ever peeled the skin off a human corpse. And you can tell the guy's reaction. He kind of looks at her like, what the fuck are you talking about, lady? And she tells him that she wasn't nervous or she wasn't shaking because she was afraid. She was shaking because of how much she wanted to do this. And yeah, you can tell the guy's like, oh shit, I'm about to die. This lady is going to kill me. And I honestly thought for a second there, I thought that Shauna was going to shoot and kill this guy. And then she would have had to try and get rid of another body. But she doesn't. She gets her van and leaves. We then go back to the coach's memory, or one of the memories that he has with his boyfriend, and you see him come in. He tells his boyfriend that he's quit and that he's going to move in with him. But obviously we know something happened because Coach ended up getting on the plane and going with the girls to nationals because he's here. And then you see on the TV screen, you see the coverage of the plane crash and everything. After that, the girls are giving their gifts to Shauna for the baby shower when Misty tells her that she's going to be performing a scene from Steel Magnolias. And everyone's reaction at first is kind of like, you know, a bunch of the girls are laughing at her and just a little fucking weirded out because it's Misty. But by the end of it, they actually cheer for her, which was really nice. We then see Travis. He goes in to check in on Coach because this is one of the weirdest baby showers that he's ever been involved with or heard of. And as he goes in there, he realizes that there's something wrong with Coach because he's just laying there on the bed, just kind of staring off into nothing. And he's like, are you okay, man? Because you seem a little weird. Now, I'm almost kind of wondering, I know a lot of people were thinking that the Coach was maybe going to get eaten by the girls, or they were going to kill him, or something like that was going to happen. But I almost am kind of wondering now that where it's kind of hinted at throughout this episode where he's hungry, I wonder if the Coach is going to die from starvation. Maybe after what he saw these girls do, he just doesn't really have an appetite for anything else, and maybe he'll die from starvation. I don't know if that's going to play out, but that's what I kind of gathered possibly from this episode, and he just seems really weak. So I don't know. I want to hear, do you guys think that's going to happen, or do you think that Coach is going to meet a more grisly death? We then go back to the present where we see Ty. She's in a bathroom, and the thing with the mirror that happened in the last episode happens again this time, except so Ty's facing one way, and we see the reflection, whatever that is, looking at her in the mirror, but she happens to turn around and sees it this time, and you can see the reflection of herself trying to have a conversation with her. I couldn't really tell what she was mouthing to her. I don't know if it was saying to go visit Simone or what it was saying, but then she does something with her eye where she kind of goes like this. I don't know why. I almost thought that had something to do with Van, but I could be completely wrong with that. So I'm curious what you guys thought, what the reflection of Tai was doing when it was putting like her hands over her face. But she obviously freaks out, asks her what she wants, and then leaves the bathroom. We then see Misty and Walter. They're getting ready to part ways when Misty comes to the realization that the people in the purple, where they purchased drinks from the soda machine, that they probably used a credit card in order to do so. So Walter asks her to let him check on it, where his specialty is hacking, but then Walter asks Misty, why do you keep downloading all of my Adam posts? And so Misty tells him that she actually knew Adam's mom and that Adam was an addict, and so she was just trying to kind of protect the mom from finding, she thinks that maybe Adam killed himself or something, so she was trying to protect the mom. And Walter thinks, he says, oh, that's nice, I understand. And Misty's like, well, I thought you might have, just because, you had your mom at the nursing home. And then we find out that actually wasn't Walter's mom. So Misty asks Walter, why would he go through all that trouble just to meet her? And you can just tell that Misty is a little overwhelmed, and I think surprised that someone would go this far, dedicate this much time just to try and meet her, because she's not used to having that kind of attention. So I thought that was interesting, but I don't know. You want to think that he is actually interested in Misty for the right reasons, but I definitely think there's more to meets the eye with Walter for sure. We then see Shauna gets home. She has Callie's toy, so she goes into her room, gives that to her, and then Jeff comes home and realizes, he's like, how did the van get back here? Misty then ends up getting a text from Walter when she gets home, and you find out that the credit card was somewhere in New York, and so he asks if Misty wants to go on a road trip with him, and you can tell that she's excited about, I think, the possibility of meeting up with Walter again, just because, again, doesn't have a lot of people that show her that much attention. And then back at Lottie's place, we have Lottie. She tells Nat and Lisa, the girl who Nat stabbed earlier, she wants them to do an exercise where she wants Lisa to tell Nat how she feels about, how she reacted the other day. We then go back to the 90s and we see Lottie gives her gift to Shauna for the baby, but Nat quickly calls out that it has the symbol on it. And Lottie says, just because you don't understand something doesn't make it evil. And then you kind of, you see that division in the group again, where you see a couple of the people saying that they believe in Lottie, they trust Lottie, but then you have the couple of girls that don't necessarily agree with her. And then right after that, you see Shauna's nose start bleeding onto the gift that Lottie gave her, and then you hear a bunch of thudding outside, and so the girls, they all go outside, and you see there is a bunch of dead birds just all over the place. Lottie then tells the group that they should gather the blessings, and you can tell that Tai doesn't agree with this, and she sees Van doing this and just kind of shakes her head. Finally, as the episode's starting to wrap up, we see Lottie in the present day. She goes to the area where all the bees were kept, and she sees a bunch of dead bees all on top of the houses. So when she goes over there, she pulls one of the slides out, and you just see a bunch of blood. She looks at her hands, they're all covered in blood, and then this lady that's next to her says something, and I tried listening to it. I literally put like my ear up to the speaker, and I couldn't understand it, so I don't know, maybe my hearing just sucks. But if you guys, did she say something in English, or maybe it was like another language? Maybe that's why I didn't understand. But I'm curious if you guys caught it. I want to know, what did she say to Lottie? But then you realize it's a hallucination, because then the lady says, oh, are you coming to lunch, or something along those lines, and then you see that everything is okay. So my thought on that is, Lottie is her mental state starting to crack again? Because we remember that she was in the hospital for that period of time. So is she starting to have, revert back to what happened before? Or is this kind of a repeat of what happened in the past, and she's having visions of something that is coming in the future in the present time? So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think this end scene means. Is it a reflection of her mental state? Is it a vision of what's to come in the future? Maybe it's a combination of both. I definitely want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. So that is the end of episode 3. Again, thank you guys so much for checking out these videos these last couple weeks. I appreciate all the love that the videos have gotten. If you guys can do me a favor, please hit a thumbs up on the video. It really helps it out. And again, I want to hear all your thoughts, theories, anything that maybe I missed in the episode, definitely let me know down below in the comments. Again, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of these videos because I'm doing them every single week. Check out my interview with Nia Sandeo, who plays Aquila. I'll put that down below. It'll also be at the end of this video, should be popping up soon. And then I'll be posting some new interviews between this next week and the week after, so make sure you keep an eye out for those. But yeah, I'm having so much fun talking Yellowjackets with you guys. I hope you are too. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat. Buzz, buzz.